All right, everybody. Stocks by the numbers. Welcome back, and I wanted to do another quick update here on SoFi Technologies, ticker symbol SOFI, listed here on the Nasdaq. Stock right now pulled back about 5% and change today, hitting a low of 643. Stock right now 647, still down about a third of a point, almost 5% here on the day. We spoke last time, just about 3 weeks ago. It was the end of May when I mentioned SoFi pulling back here to about the sub $7 level, and you can see we pulled back to this fib here of about 668. Then the stock ran to the top of this wedge that we've been looking at. We've basically been in this wedge since the ball dropped, really. Right here before the new year, the stock was up here at a high above $10 a share. Then we had a big drop down, and we've just been channeling downward for about the last 6 months. So it's interesting when things like this happen, because this was a trader heavy stock, right? This was a company that a lot of people were keeping an eye on. It was on a lot of people's radars, and everyone's just expecting it to climb and climb and climb. And it's funny because now we enter a situation where Wall Street decides, hey, let's calm it down. Let's bring it down in this long-term wedge for, 6, 7, 8 months. And, maybe people will jump ship. Maybe people will get impatient with it. Overall, in my opinion, SoFi has been growing very, very nicely in the fundamentals. Revenue, the net income up quarter over quarter, year over year. If we come down here, the last couple of quarters here, we can see that not only did they beat estimates, but they actually went net income positive for the quarters. But you can see, look at that growth over the quarters, over the years. And right now they're bringing in a couple of billion a year. They have assets minus liabilities is total equity, right? So if we look at the equity, we can see we have about 6 billion in equity. That's the highest it's been going back the last 7 quarters or so. And we can see that the book value back up above 5.5 after dipping down to 528. So stock right now is only about $1 above book value. But overall, in my opinion, in the numbers and the long term, I do think it's a pretty decent investment in my eyes. But also, more importantly, we usually see action when the stock comes down to this level, right? And the last time we really got beaten up here to the sub 6.5 level was back here in November 2023. And you can see that we were right at the bottom of this wedge here. This was end of July to November. Okay, so kind of a similar situation, right? We popped up to these highs here of almost 12. Then we went into this descending wedge for like 5 months. And then boom, the stock absolutely exploded, and it went from about 6.5 up to about 10.5, and now we're channeling back down into this wedge again. So it seems like in general, anytime the stock hits like this 660 mark or the mid-low sixes, that's usually when a lot of traders and investors step in, they buy that big dip, and then potentially try to ride that wave back up to the 9s or the 10s. In general, in my opinion, probably a pretty good chance to get back to 9, 10, especially if we're, again, dropping down in this big wedge. We have earnings coming up, looks like the end of July, so about 6 weeks. Last quarter, the company beat nicely on the top and bottom line. And we're almost at the bottom of this channel here. You can see bottom trend line here, maybe like 635, 634. So, of course, the stock could drop another, 15, 20 cents a share or whatever. But in my opinion, buying it down here today on a big dip towards the bottom of the range, in my eyes, probably a pretty good play. I mentioned it. In my opinion, I would step in on maybe some calls or some shares for the long term. I mentioned it in the Discord and on X as well. And Discord link in the description of every video. But long story short, again, if we have a similar, again, past performance does not dictate future results. We all know this. But if we do stay in this wedge, and if we are near the bottom, like I said, we might, maybe 6.25 maybe, but then hopefully we can pop back to not only the top half of the top end of this range here of around 7, but then we can potentially break out. But on the technical side here, let's switch over to stock charts really quick, and we can see that the MACD technically just crossed to the downside with the big drop, which is why we can continue to potentially pull back, maybe like another 20 cents a change a share. But RSI down here now at about 35.1/3, so in my opinion, probably setting up to bounce soon. And if we switch over here to the weekly, we can see RSI sitting here now at about 40, and the bottom Bollinger Band here on the weekly, 6.25 even. So that's why, in my opinion, that might be the low of the lows. However, it has been kind of in this downward channel, so this is why we can be ready to pop back up to about 7.5. But in general, again, as we see, I spoke about it here. It was like 680 or something, and we had the slight pullback, and then we had the pop back up to 743, and it popped back to the top of the range. So that's why I'm saying a stock like this is one that, in my opinion, if I had consistent, steady income and I was able to add to a position, accumulate shares, build a position, like we say, in my opinion, it seems like really any price sub 7 does seem like a decent fill here for SoFi. But let's check the pivot points real quick, and I'll let you go because I just wanted to do a quick update. Again, I mentioned it in the Discord, which is in the link, which is in the description of every video, and also on X if you guys want to start following me on X, but I'm more active in the Discord and on YouTube really. But we can see here we had a pivot point 649, stock right now 647, so we have to see if we close at or above that support level, and we might have a bounce back up to 7, or if we break down we drop to that 6.25 level. And if we check over here on the weekly, we can see, yeah, next support 569. In my opinion, that would be an overreaction, and that would actually break us out of this wedge. But I mean, if I like it at 6.5, I'm gonna like it even more at sub 6. But overall, in my opinion, quick update here on SoFi, and in the short term, I think I mentioned. Let me see. So right now, I'll double check the price, but June 28, 7 calls. Let me check here for you. Bear with me. So 628, 7 calls right now are trading 9 by $10, the bid ask. Right? So for $10 each, you can step in and you can potentially get yourself some calls, basically betting that this stock would get back to 7 plus over the course of the next 2 weeks, and it'll only cost you about $10 each. So, of course, everyone's financial situation is different. I figured a couple of weeks of time and only about a 50-cent move, and they're pretty cheap for only $10, but obviously anyone out there who has a little bit more liquidity, if you guys want, you can buy several months out, of course, to potentially really secure that trade. But I just thought I'd mention it because, in my opinion, again, this is one that looks pretty decent in the fundamentals. And this is why I feel that the strategy should be to form a hit list of stocks like SoFi, stocks like Hims and Hers, right? HIMS, we spoke about, almost up to $25 a share. So stocks like that, in my opinion, you make your hit list, you wait for the big pullbacks like this, and then you step in, you buy those dips, and then you sell those rips. Hopefully, if and when the trade works out. But that's pretty much it, and I'll end it there. So once again, Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And also the CEO, I know I'm late with this, but the CEO also stepped in and just bought about 30,000 shares, now holding, I think it's like 8.1 million shares. I think it says here, amount for about 200,000 today, and we can see directly owns 8.12 million shares of SoFi. So, I know a lot of people also like to follow the insiders or any activists as well, and today we had the CEO throw 200K into more shares of SoFi, so if it's good enough for him, potentially it's good enough for you. But that's pretty much it. So like the video, of course, thumbs up algorithm, right? Helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, they're volatile, they are very uncertain. So I want to wish all of you success. Hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thanks for your time. Have a good weekend.